guys, happy Friday. We have made it. So excited. We are on to our weekend. So as you guys got to see part 1, and if you haven't seen part 1, please go back and watch part 1. Otherwise you will be extremely lost and you would have missed a lot of the good information that we talked about in that part. This is part 2 of the series with Nikki or Nicelle. Super excited for you guys to hear the rest of it and wrapping up her journey. Once again, we are going to be talking about drugs, alcohol, depression, and anxiety. I just want to make sure that you are aware of it and that there is some sensitive discussions. With that being said, here's part 2. I will in a bit ask you to kind of like elaborate on that and like how that brought you back to God.
Yeah.
But, you know, one thing that I wanted to really elaborate with like the group and for everybody to really hear and really take in of all of this, and yes, you're never too far gone. And yes, God will, you know, come for you and he will love you and he will accept you. He is redeemed. No matter what moment in your life where you are, you can repent. You can decide in that moment, no matter how far you think you've gone, it's not too far. You can turn.
Right.
If you're still breathing, you're still alive, you can turn.
Absolutely. God
is still giving you that opportunity. And I love that you said you were seeking acceptance and seeking acceptance. What I loved the most about this is that you found that love and acceptance by those that were also hurting. And the reason I love that is because God wants those that have stories. And we've talked about this. Like, he wants those that have struggled. He wants those that have been through the hard times. And it's in the Bible itself. He chose 12 people. Nobody would have ever chosen.
Imperfect people.
Yes, the most imperfect people.
Yeah.
And he changed the world.
Yeah.
He changed the world with those 12 people.
Yeah.
But nobody would have chosen them.
No.
They would have been the last picks.
Right. Yeah.
And he was like, no, I want you, I want you, I want you. And everybody's like, you want that? Like, want that.
It's true, And
he changed the world with them. And that is where I'm just like, I want everybody to understand that do not think you have to have that perfect life. You have to have your life put together, that you have to have everything buttoned up, and that you have to have that plan in order for God to accept you and love you, because no, he loves you where you are. The story was already written. God already knew this was going to happen. That's why Jesus already died on the cross for your sins, because he died for not just your sins, your future kids' sins, like
everybody,
your grandkids' sins. Like, he did like that whole overall, right? And it's so beautiful to know that before you were even like a twinkle in your parents' eyes, like way before you even a thought to anybody. He thought of you and was like a blanket of forgiveness. And that's what I love about your story, where it's, look guys, like I was just continuing down that path, and it was like he kept stepping in and I'd be like, not yet, go away.
Not your time yet, God, not your time.
Exactly. But he never stopped trying. He never stopped trying to be like, oh, I want my child back. Because of that love that he has. And realizing, okay, and this is where I find like God is so amazing, is that he gets on your level. If he knows that he's not going to be able to get to you the way he's trying, fine, I'm going to get on your level. Your new boss, I'm going to have him call you. He's somebody who's, you know, who's in NA. And then, you know, somebody who's going to come in on a high, she's going to be a pastor too. And she's going to surround you with people. It's like putting it on your level. He knew that slowly that was going to start like chipping away at you, chipping away. And what I love about that as well is that we all know the enemy uses our weaknesses. He really does. And if you don't, like I said, bring it to existence, say like, God, Lord, I give it to you, just keep, you know, working on those, working on those. And like, you started with the feeling of not feeling enough and wanting to be accepted. And the enemy knew, like, okay, this is where she's hurting.
And it's the stories in your mind. It's just little voices.
That's exactly what it is. And then just working on that a little bit more, and then, okay, well, how much further can I irritate her? And how much further can I hurt her? And you just continue down, and before you know it, you're like, oh, I'm hurting. I'm so hurt. But then I love the way God works, where it's like, you don't see what I'm trying to do for you now, child, but I'm going to make it so obvious that you're not going to be able to ignore it, because I'm going to take care of you. Because you are my child, because I know that in there you do want to come back.
Right.
And I know how much I love you, and I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. And I think it's so beautiful to hear stories just like yours where God's already chosen you. Mm-hmm. We don't have to be chosen by this world. We don't have to be accepted by this world. We don't need this world to love us because we're loved by God.
Exactly.
Like, he already chose us. Jesus did the ultimate price for love, and he died for us. And I love your story because it's a perfect example of, we hear it, but is it true?
Right.
And it's, you have that beautiful story of, like, I'm living proof. That's exactly, you know, that he is the Redeemer.
Right.
Like, he does love you. He does say that you're never too far gone. He does say that in this exact moment, today is the day. Today you can choose to say, you know what, Lord, I repent and I'm so sorry and please forgive me. And he'll say, okay. Yeah. All right, like, I've washed you clean.
Let's start again.
Yes, let's start again. So, I mean, with that being said, like, and where you were, and you were now going to, was it NA or NA?
Well, going to both, NA and AA.
Okay.
So I was going between both.
Okay, so as you were going to that, at what point did you start to really find yourself back in the Lord and really find yourself being pulled back? Like, he's obviously working in your life. You can see that. But where was that in that point?
Well, like I said, my sponsor, she was a big believer of God. I mean, she was a woman of God. She had seen God work in her life because she was in sobriety. She was going to a local church, JPL, and at first I wasn't so keen on going back, and then finally she invited me, and after a few times of inviting me, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll check it out. And so I went, and I fell in love with this church because it was just this acceptance, and it wasn't this overwhelming, huge mega church. It was, maybe 100 people. It was, and I liked the pastor, and it was family, and there was a comfort in the building when I walked in, and so I started going, and then I invited my mom to go, and so then she started going with me, and then all of a sudden we started doing life groups together, and it just kind of became this little kind of slowly snowball, where we both kind of started growing more in God. But let me say something to you. Just because you turn to God does not mean that your life is perfect. And so and that's the thing. And I'll be honest with you, that was my thing. Is I was going to church and I'd gotten clean, and I was coming back to God. In my eyes, I was a good Christian girl now, right? I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit using drugs. I was all of these things, and 3 months after I got sober, I got diagnosed with MS. And I remember, and at that point too, I was thinking, I'm doing everything perfect. God's going to bless me. He's going to give me a promotion. He's going to give me a pay raise. Like, I'm going to get something good from this. And sure enough, 3 months clean, I knew something wasn't right physically. I've been struggling with some health issues, and we went to the hospital, and mind you too, I just opened a hotel. I had just gotten clean, and so there was like, well, maybe I'm just doing withdrawals. There's a lot that my body's working through. Went to the hospital. They did an MRI. They didn't X-ray my back. My back was clean. They ended up doing an MRI of my brain and kept me over my spinal cord, and it was just like fireworks had gone off in my brain. It was just lesion. And I knew, of course, Google. We love Google. I'd done enough Googling. I knew probably this was what it was going to be. And when the doctor walked in, he said, you have MS and multiple sclerosis.
I was going to say, would you mind just speaking?
So MS, multiple sclerosis, basically what it is at some point in my life, probably when I was in my teens, I got sick. Got sick, my body doing what your body does. It heals itself, but when the disease was gone, my body didn't realize it was gone, and instead it kept thinking that the nerve endings and the myelin sheath basically in my brain were the disease, and so it keeps attacking my brain, and it's not something that you feel overnight. I mean, I don't know how long I had it until it was diagnosed, or what maybe was a turning point, but there it was. And
sorry, how did you, just so that somebody doesn't know what it is, like, how were you experiencing it? Like, you said you knew that there was something wrong. Like, what was it that you were feeling?
I had pins and needles. So pins and needles is a big kind of tell sign of it. And don't take me as doctor and think I can diagnose anything. That's my disclaimer. But it is. It's like that feeling if your arm goes to sleep or your leg goes to sleep, that pins and needles, that tingling. My legs were always in that state, and I would have extreme back pain, and it would never go away. If it went away, it was just for a little bit of time, or I would take a hot shower, and I'd get out of the shower, and I would be exhausted. Like I felt like I had to sit down and I was just like drained. And of course I went online, like I said, I Googled and they all kind of told me that that's what it might be. And sure enough it was. So here I was and I thought I was doing everything right and I got diagnosed. And my doctor walks in and he looks at me and I'm 24 years old. Like I'm young.
Yeah.
And he walks in and I said, well, why? Like why? I'm a why person. Like if you're going to tell me something's broken, tell me why and tell me how we're going to fix it because I need to have a plan. And I need a plan. I need you as my doctor to have my plan so we can fix it. Let's just fix it. And he said, I don't know why. He's like, you're young, you live in a sunny climate. He's like, I don't know why you have it. And then of course I'm like, well, am I being punished? Okay, I did drugs. Is this punishment? Like, is it because I did drugs? And he's like, no, it's not because you did drugs. And I was disappointed, to be honest with you, when he said that to me because I wanted, at least if he told me that, right? I needed a reason. And at least if he told me it was because of drugs, I could accept it. Like I knew, okay, I had sinned. This was my punishment. Okay, like now we're even. You know, now I paid for my sins.
Right.
I mean, you don't pay for sins. You don't have to pay for sins. No. You know, God's done that for you. But it was devastating. There was this moment of why. I was angry. You know, to say I wasn't angry at God, I was angry, you know, because why doing everything right? Like, why would you do this? My mom, she let me go through that healing process. She let me go through this time of grieving, I guess you can say. Grieving doesn't mean I was giving up. Grieving doesn't mean I was throwing in the towel and accepting it. Grieving just meant me learning to let go of what I thought my life should be in order for me to accept who I was. And to be present in this moment so that I could fight it. Because if I kept living in a future state, if I kept living in this, well, I should be, in the should be's, I wasn't going to be able to fight the battle that I needed to fight right here in that moment.
And I'm sorry, how long were you sober when you found out?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, and I was in that beautiful like honeymoon phase of sobriety. You know, I was doing, like I said, I was doing everything right, and that's why I thought God would give me promotion at least. Geez. But I got arrested instead. You know, it's funny now because I can look back and I can laugh about it. It wasn't funny, and that's when I say, as Christians, I think sometimes too there is this mentality that if we do everything right, your life is perfect. Or I think that's what sometimes non-believers use as a reason not to believe, because they say, well, obviously you're believing, but you still got diagnosed. So is God real? Like, does he really love you? And I'll tell you right now, absolutely. Like it was, you know, this journey that I've been on since 2014, it's what, 2011, 7 years now. You know, it's been an absolute roller coaster, but I can say to you that getting diagnosed was probably the biggest blessing that God ever gave to me. And it was because if there had ever been a moment where I thought I wanted to start using again, that I wanted to smoke again, that I wanted to revert back to old habits, I knew that if I ever did that, I would kill myself because it'd be a mess. Like I would never be able to have the life that I want if I went back. It wasn't what I wanted, but in a way, it was what I needed. And I needed this because not only did it keep me on my path, but it also forced me to slow down. I was in a state where I was always 100 miles an hour, 100% of the time. You know, I was always going, and in that, while I believed in God, I wasn't taking care of myself, and I wasn't spending a lot of time with Him. And so this was, in a matter of 24 hours, those brakes being hit. And there was this big kind of like, okay, we have to reevaluate what life looks like and what this is going to mean. It took probably 4 years of praying and going through medication after medication. It was a period to where I pretty much was on steroids almost every month in order to keep myself stable. You know, I was on 3 different medications. There was this life that happened, and it wasn't beautiful and it wasn't perfect, and there was a lot of tears and a lot of heartache, but I knew that God was going to get me through. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I knew we were going to get through this somehow. And there was this treatment for a stem cell transplant that was very experimental, and I found it shortly on in my diagnosis, and I remember praying and praying and praying for this to happen. But it was a lot of money. and insurance wasn't going to cover it. I remember I reached a point, because it'd probably been about 2 years in this journey where things were going downhill, and they were going downhill pretty fast with my health. I remember literally praying one night for God to give me cancer. I was in such a state of sadness and just feeling lost, where I sat there and I was like, okay, God, in a while for me asking for me to have my health turn around. If you're not going to, then just give me cancer and just let me die with dignity. Let me go, because I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a burden to my family. At that point too, I was married, I had a baby, and I kept looking at this family that I had created, that I was now a part of, and I was like, my husband deserves better. He deserves a wife. Son deserves a mom. And if you're not going to give that to me, God, then just let me die. Because I know I can't take my own life, because I do want to go to heaven at some point, but then do it for me. It is a good thing that God doesn't answer your prayers. And God was like,
I love the unanswered prayers.
Right?
Yes.
And God was like, no, we're not going to go in that path. He provided, and he always does. And 4 years of prayers and a lot of tears, God provided for me to have a stem cell transplant and to have my life back. And I realize now, though, looking at that journey, that I had to wait. There was a reason for a season of waiting, and it was because God knew that if he had given me what I wanted right away, I would have fallen back into those old habits. I would have fallen back into, oh, I'm healed. I can go 100 miles an hour all over again. And God needed me to sit in my stuff.
Yeah.
He needed me to sit in my hurt and my hang-ups and my heartbreaks, and he needed me to take that time to look at my life and really what it is that I want with my life, and really what is my purpose on this life. Because I'll be honest too, before those moments, I was selfish. I didn't care really about other people. I mean, I loved people, but I was always very self-centered in what I wanted. And I was not as forgiving of people as I should. And I was not as understanding of people as I should be. And now I walk through a season where I understood what it was like to have people give you funny looks. Because there were days when I'd have to walk with a cane. Days where I would get up and I wasn't sure if my feet were going to work. But from the outside, when people would look at me, I looked totally healthy and normal. I looked just as I did with you now. And here I am with a cane. Or I'd have family come over and I'd have to have my mother-in-law carry my son because I was too afraid I would drop him. I was afraid I would fall. And there would be those looks of like, you look healthy. You look totally normal. And I had to sit in that judgment. I had to sit and understand what it felt like so that I can have compassion to other people. And I think that's the thing too, is sometimes it's hard for us to look at, okay, what is the meaning of this? And take a step back and realize life is not happening to me, it's happening for me. Okay, what is it that God is trying to teach me in this season of my life? And it's why now I'm in a state where I look at this path that I'm on and it's not perfect, and I don't know what it means. I don't know if I'm always going to be healthy. I pray that I am, but I know that I'm put on this earth to be of service to people. And I never would have said that before. I know that God has given me a mission, like I am today, to share my testimony and to be a voice to people that, like you said, you're never too far gone. As long as you can just stay committed, and it's not easy and it's not always fun, and it means you're going to get looks and judgment. And there were people who questioned my belief in God. There were people who wanted to know why I could believe in a God who would allow these things to happen, and it's because I needed them to happen. And I needed to learn to take acceptance of my actions, but also learn to give it over to God. It doesn't mean that I don't have days where I want to be in control and I try to control everything, but I also have to realize I don't want it anymore. Like, I'm okay at this point with just being okay, and I don't want to be perfect, and I don't want to be everybody's everything, and I don't want to fix everybody. I want to love you, and I'm going to be there for you, and I want you to know that if I can do it, you can too. There's always a voice, but you have to be willing to ask. And be willing to accept the answers that you get, even if they're not the answers that you want. That there's always a bigger plan to this picture.
I agree. You spoke on a lot, and I kind of want to unpack a little bit of that. Is one thing that really stood out, and it's true, like you said, you don't become a Christian and you don't give your life to God and say like, okay, Lord, I'm going to get it right this time. It doesn't happen that way, and then you have like this perfect life. And you're so right, and I think a lot of people need to understand that, especially those that myself included, where at one point where it's like, well, why would I even sacrifice all of that if I don't even get to have that perfect life?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point? So you start realizing it, and we've talked about it here in Bible study, this is not God's world.
Right.
And that is why things happen.
Yeah.
We also are in control of our choices. God does not force us to make any of our own choices. Like, it's our choice.
Yeah.
We have free will to make those choices. But with every choice comes consequences.
Yeah.
Now, am I saying you have to pay for your sins? No. That's not what I'm saying. And I didn't have to pay for mine either. But there are consequences for all of our choices.
Yeah.
Everything that we decide to do.
Yeah.
And with that being said, again, like, this is not God's world.
Yeah.
And so, why would I want to give up and make sacrifices here on earth? Well, because like, I want to go where it's going to be great, and it is God's world, and He is taking care of everything, and there's no hurt, there's no pain, there's no sadness, there's nothing other than joy and love and happiness. Like, that's why.
Right, exactly.
And so, of course, if you see the world that it is here now, this is, people call it hell on earth. Like, no, we read about in Revelation.
Yeah.
We read what hell is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And if this is not what it is, I definitely don't want to go there. I definitely don't want to deal with that. Like, no, I don't want something worse than where we already are. Like, you can just see how things are going. So I think that was really good that you said that. Like, that's so important for people to understand that that is why things happen. We are in control of our decisions. We are able to make those choices. God is not going to force us to make any decision. God is not going to make decisions for us. Yeah. And so every choice we make has consequences. Right. And at the end of the day, right now, where we are, it is not God's world. Right. That's not where we are right now. And waiting season. And I talked about this in one of my previous videos, and I love that you said it, and I've talked about it, and I've noticed in my own life that waiting seasons are hard. Yeah. They really are. And a lot of times people will say, like, and myself included, I was like, God's not even doing anything. Right. Like, I gave my life to you, turned my life around, doing what you're telling me to do. Yeah. Why aren't you doing anything? Right. Yeah. Like, what's going on? Yeah. I'm being a good daughter. Like, come on. I know. But then you fast forward to where you are. Of course, at the time you didn't see it, but it's like you said, you would have never imagined yourself to say, like, I'm put on this earth to serve. Right. Okay, so what does that mean? Like, He changed your heart before He did anything else for you. Right. And it's so funny that you don't recognize it. It's like these small little changes that happen within you that before you know it, you're like, who am I? You know, and like, I've used my story in the sense of I love to read, right? And on the side of my bed, I have a pile of books. Right. And it's books that I love, and a lot of them were like romance books, mystery books, and just different things like that, right? And as I gave my life to the Lord, it was like, took one book out and replaced it with like, you know, Single, Dated, Engaged, Married by Ben Stewart, who's a Christian author. Put one there. And then I took out another one, like How to Make Your Life Not Suck by also a Christian author. And it was just Christian book after Christian book after Christian book. And then one day my mom walked into my room and she looked at my side table and she was just like, have you even noticed something? Yeah. And I'm like, what? She said, all of these are Christian books. And I was like, actually, I didn't notice that. But it's those gradual changes. And so when we say that God's not doing anything in our waiting season, if you don't physically see something happening, He's definitely doing something. He's on the inside. He's working on the inside. He knows that if He works on the inside, you will be that willing child. You will be willing to say, like, okay, He's not going to have to fight with you so much. So, to make the big change in you. Exactly. So I love that you talked on that, because that's exactly, like, you were like, why, Lord? Like, why? Why? And He was working on you internally, right? And also teaching you to lean on Him, and have faith in Him, and realize that I'm here. Yeah. Why are you praying for hurt and pain when I'm here? Yeah. Lean on me. And like you said, slow down. That's a huge thing that I've also had to struggle with. I'm like, let's do it now, let's go through this, let's do that. Yeah. And I like to have so many things like being juggled and thrown in the air. Yeah. And my family, when I got back from being in Maryland, they're like, man, you're in such a fast-paced mode. Like, and it's so funny, you know, they say, you're like God speaks to you. Not that He doesn't. I don't say that He doesn't. What I mean by that is some people hear Him in different ways. Right? Yeah. So the funny thing is, the first time I heard God talking to me, I kid you not, 4 different people, 4 different conversations, 4 different times. Right, like, they had no idea the other conversation. The thing was, that came out of it is like, you know, you really need to slow down. Yeah. And then like another person like, you know, you're probably so tired because you need to slow down. You right? Then I started listening to this podcast, right? And also by a Christian person. And they were talking about their life, and they're like, sometimes God isn't doing anything because he wants you to slow down.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I hear you.
Right? Exactly.
And so it's things like that happen. And I love that you talk about all of that, because I think it's so important for those that maybe you're, a new believer and you're maybe in Christ, or maybe you've been, you've had this relationship with him for such a long time, but you feel like you're in that waiting season, or you're trying to get an answer, and maybe he has answered. Maybe it's in a subtle way that you didn't expect, or maybe you thought God, you were like, God doesn't talk to me, but maybe he is. Maybe he's talking to you in a different way. It's not like you're not hearing him, but he's sending messages.
I love it too. I'll be driving sometimes, and if I'm having, I've got probably close to 100 songs on my Apple playlist, and they're all, every type of different music song. I'm having one of those days, and I just put on shuffle, and sure enough, for it to be like a Lauren Daigle song. And I'm like, no, I'm not listening to this right now. I'll change the song, and sure enough, then it'll be, like another Lauren Daigle song. I'm like, don't want to listen to this. And it just keeps being like Christian song after Christian song. Really, I have 10 Christian songs out of 100, and you're going to play outside of them right back and forth. I'm like, okay, clearly I need to I get it. It's like that. I love those moments when with church, I'll stream church on on my TV on Sundays, and it'd be good Father and stuff like that. And I'm just one of my favorite songs. And so if I'm feeling lost, I'm like, okay, that's how I know God heals me. And I think that music is a way that God speaks to me, and I think he speaks to you in ways that he knows you listen to. If you are a music person, if you are a person who loves to read, he'll find a verse that just sticks out to you all of a sudden. You open the Bible and it'll be just oh, okay, got it, and I love that God surprises you. I love that he's a God that takes joy in little surprise and delights in your day. It's like going to the store and you're in a hurry, but you get that perfect parking spot, or it's supposed to be a 2-hour wait for something, and you get there and sure enough, there's nobody in line. Or they're like, we just had 20 people cancel. Guess what? You got the ticket. And it's just little things, and you're just like, oh.
Thank you.
And oftentimes you go, oh, the universe must really like me today. No, God really likes me.
God was aligning things. He knew what you needed.
Right, and I love it. I love those moments. I love those little things. And I think, too, it took me learning how to tune into that to realize that it wasn't, we like to call it luck. We call everything, oh, you're just lucky, or you're just, no, I'm just loved. I'm loved is what it is.
Such a beautiful way
and I love that now I can tune into those moments of what people call luck and realize that's God loving me. And it's not always going to be this big, you're going to win a brand new car, or you're going to $1 million is going to show up on your door. It'd be nice if you want to, God, you can't. But
we'll take
it. But it's going to be those little things. It's that perfect song. It's that, if you have kids, it's that perfect morning where your kids wake up and they're in a great mood. It's those things, and that's what makes me happy. I think those are the things too that I can look back now in my life and I can see those little moments of perfect divine intervention.
Exactly.
And I'm just God, I'm so lucky. And that's why I know I'm meant to serve, is just to help people find God's love. Because I think if everybody knew the way that God loves them, I think if you knew those perfect moments of serendipity that you had with God and not just some random universe, you would realize how loved you are, and it would change the way you live your life, and it would change what you allow in your life.
I'm only going to ask you a couple more questions to get a little bit more of your time. I did want to talk about your blessings, and you said that at the time you didn't see them. You were going through all of it, and you're married now.
I am,
and you have a child.
I do.
Okay, and the old you, years ago, would you have ever imagined that this is what your life would have looked like?
Absolutely not. There was a time when I was absolutely never going to have kids. I did not want kids. I wanted to be a corporate trainer. I wanted to travel the world. Living at a hotel to me was my dream. That was going to be me. I was going to travel. No, absolutely not. I never thought that I would. And it's funny, too, that I should meet my husband. And I just remember I spent a lot of time praying to God, and I'm like, okay, God, I really want to find somebody. I want to meet someone. I remember just having these funny dreams, wouldn't it be funny if I got a job and he was my bartender? That'd be kind of funny. That'd be silly. Because that totally goes against everything you're allowed to do, is to date your staff. And that'd be kind of funny, though. And whatever, I would just kind of laugh and play, but it would just make me giggle, in my dreams. And then sure enough, apply for a job up here at a hotel within my company. I fly up and I get the job. So I move up here. And I'm the food and beverage manager. Been there for about 2 weeks. And I met everybody. but one guy, I shouldn't say kid, man. You know, and everybody kept telling me about him, like, oh, he's EJ, and, you know, he's the bartender, but you haven't seen him because, you know, he has a kid and you seem to have opposite schedules. So I never met him. And then sure enough, like one day I was going back to my office and he was this guy in my office with my assistant manager. He's got like tattoos and he's got a man bun. And I was just like, and I'm like, he's in good shape. And I was like, oh, he's kind of good looking. And sure enough, you know, my assistant was like, oh, this is EJ. This is your bartender. He's having to get, you know, he's using your computer to do a certification. I was like, oh, hi. And it just made me giggle. I was like, oh, okay, he's really good looking. And it became one of those things. So I remember when I was living at the hotel, you know, my gym was just down the way. Coming back from the gym and I was like sweaty because I just in a class. And sure enough, he was coming out. Oh, he was outside front because at the time he used to smoke. And I was sweaty. He's like, hey, Nicelle. I was like, oh, hey, hi. I'm like, I want to stay over here. You just stay over there. I'm really sweaty. I just got back from the gym. And he's like, oh. I would laugh about it too because he's like, you were really awkward. That's it. And we just started talking, and it just was something that I didn't even know how it just evolved, and it evolved really quickly, and it became something where I just was wondering where to get sushi one day. I was like, you know, do you know where there's good sushi? He's like, I'll take you to sushi. And that kind of became our first date, and then sure enough, he had a big red truck. I was like, I need some moves. Like, I'll help you move, and I've got cousins, and I'll pay them with beer, and we'll move you. I was like, awesome. It just kind of became, it blossomed into this beautiful relationship, and he had a daughter, this beautiful young woman who I'm so grateful to have in my life because she's just she's smart and she's loving. She's so much like him. There's two very much the same people. And Julie was a divine appointment because yes, he was my bartender, and so clearly what I thought was funny was really God telling me like this was gonna be your future. We had only been dating maybe for about when my health took a really bad turn. And I still remember him coming to pick me up one day because we were going to go out to lunch, and I literally collapsed in his arms at the front door. Like my legs were just done. I was like, I need to get to a hospital. And he's like, okay, we're gonna go. And then we took me to the hospital. They admit me, of course, because I need to go in for more steroids. I just remember sitting thinking like, okay, this is it.
Right.
Like, we've known each other for 3 months. Not really anything necessarily. I mean, we're kind of boyfriend and girlfriend, but it's not like it's officially official in any way. And I was like, if he's gonna walk, he's gonna walk now. And I couldn't blame him. And all honesty, I'm like, okay, he's got a kid. He's got his own life that he's trying to take care of. You know, here's this woman who just got, and let me back up a little bit. So EJ did know I had MS, but it's one thing to say you're okay with it until it's in your face. And here you are in a hospital room with somebody hooked up to an IV, being told that this is what this looks like. This is what this disease looks like. I don't have any answers, and it could be as bad as it gets, or it could get worse. And he just loved me. I remember he took my cell phone and he calls my mom, he calls my dad, he calls everybody, and he's like, hey, I'm here with Nicelle. I want you to know I'm going to take care of her. He just told them I'm going to be with her and I'm going to make sure she's okay. And it was a completely opposite, I guess, of the relationship I thought it was going to be. But it's the best relationship. Of course, it's the most perfect relationship for me that we've ever been in because he loves me unconditionally. He tells me all the time how beautiful I am. Even in the ugliest of days of this disease where it wasn't pretty. I mean, there were days where my husband had to help me to the bathroom. There were days where I would need help with things. And he never stopped. And in a World War II where unfortunately divorce is so common and image is everything, and you see people who they take their vows and the minute things get rocky they walk away. My husband has only loved me even harder, and we now have this beautiful family. I have a son who's 4 and my stepdaughter who's 12, and I think the one thing for us too is that regardless of how tough things get, we cling together. And what's so beautiful too, and I love the way God works, is that God has really worked on EJ's heart because he's always believed in God, but it was more of like an I am God type of thing. And now EJ would talk more about God sometimes than I will, or when I have my days when I'm getting caught up, he's like give it to God. Like pray about it. Like we're okay. Look at where we came from, and it's so true. I mean, it's so beautiful, and I love though how it started with as being a dream. It's so fun. I mean, and it is. It's what I love about life is I'm 31 and I can look back on my life and I can think, you know, my mom would tell you, remember being in the jacuzzi after getting diagnosed and just sobbing because I was like, who's going to love me? Like, who would love somebody who has a disease that could leave you disabled and who can't even tell you what's going to happen? Who's going to love me? And sure enough, like 4 years after the fact, he would give me somebody who would never stop loving me. Which is amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so beautiful.
We've kind of come to like a full circle, like where you are now, and I love your story. It is so beautiful. It's beautiful testimony, and I love that you can share openly and talk to those that maybe are struggling with the same thing, that are right there where you were years ago, and they can see and be like, okay, God does do miracles. God does work through you if you're just willing, if you just give your life to Him, if you just turn down, if you just repent, like He will and He can. And even in the times where you were struggling and you were thinking, and it's funny when we barely give our lives over, I think that's what we think, right? Like we kind of think of God, at least I did, maybe I'm the only one, but He's a genie. And He's going to give you what you want. And then you start to realize, okay, maybe He's not blessing me because I'm doing this wrong. And it's not that He's not blessing you, because He's definitely blessing you. Every day you wake up is a blessing. But it's not what you're thinking, but it's because your thoughts are wrong and you need to like change that relationship with Him. So I love your story. I think it is beautiful. And something actually from the book that Ben Stewart wrote, which is Single, Dating, Engaged, Married, he talks about that you're never too far gone. And I love that. And he says, especially those that think, oh no, I have such a terrible story that I'm not going to be able to find somebody to be with me. But it's like, no, you're wrong. Because when you find the right person that God is actually working within, they're going to love you right where you are. So I think that's beautiful. And I think that you've touched on it all. And again, I thank you so much for being here and working through all of this and giving your stories, you know, and your testimony. And because you talked about such heavy stuff, I do have one more question for you, and this is more for those that are listening that maybe are in the same struggling boat that you are in, but like, what would you say to someone you were talking to or that you know is battling with the same thing that you were battling with, and like, what would you say, like, as far as getting help and leaning on God during this time? Like, maybe even that they were in the same boat where they're like, no, not now. What would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
If you wait for the perfect moment, there's never going to be the perfect moment.
That's
And the biggest thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to admit that you can't do it all. And I think that's the biggest thing, and I think it's also the hardest thing to have to look at somebody who have to go into a room and say, I can't do this on my own. And that's what God's waiting for. He's just waiting for you to turn to Him and to understand too that it is a journey. It is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's like you said, it's about taking it minute by minute, day by day, hour by hour. It's not about waking up tomorrow and being this brand new person. And I think that's the biggest thing, is often people think that they have to be a brand new person tomorrow. They have to wake up at 6 a.m. and read the Bible and go to the gym and quit everything that they've done in order to get to where they want to be. But that's not sustainable. You've got to make little changes that are sustainable, and to show yourself grace in this journey. To understand that, yes, you may take 5 steps forward and take a step back. You might not always keep moving at the same pace that you will. You may end up having to slow down on this journey, and that's okay. God doesn't need you to be anywhere other than where you are right now. All He wants you to be is willing to accept His help and to be willing to trust Him. And to accept what that trust might mean. So just love yourself and allow God to love you.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I hope that helps somebody out there. I know that there's a lot going on, and we all struggle, and if there's somebody struggling with this, I really hope your story is able to be, help them, and maybe they can answer some questions. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's not easy to talk about your story. I know, I've done it. It's hard to talk about yourself, it's hard to talk about the really hard, in-depth, scary side that we really don't like to talk about. So thank you for being vulnerable and answering all the questions and giving everybody else, the advice and what you would recommend and how your story has hopefully can help others, but also like where it's brought you in life today. So I really appreciate it. For you guys, I want to leave you with one last thing, which is a Bible verse. It is in Romans 8:37, and it says, "No, in all things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. For I am sure that neither death nor life, nor angels nor rulers, nor things present nor things to come, nor powers nor height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord." I chose this verse because I think it is the perfect verse to say that no matter where you are, no matter what is happening in your life, no matter how far you think you are, you're not too far gone. God still loves you and nothing can separate you from that. It is your choice. You can turn at any point in your life. At any point where you are, he still loves you in the exact moment, the exact place. All the pain, all the hurt, no matter what it is, he loves you and he can forgive you. He will forgive you if you just repent. Guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed the interview that I got to have with Nikki. I had such a blast. So Nikki, if you're watching this, thank you so much for coming on and giving your story, your testimony. I know that it was a sensitive topic, so I really appreciate all of your support in this and being willing to really be raw and give everybody your insight, your journey, your testimony, and your true story. I hope that you guys were able to take something from this and that you're able to see that no matter where you are in life, no matter how far you are, you're never too far gone for God. If I'm just this far away, there's no point in turning around. And I want you guys to know that that is not true. And I hope you guys were able to see that within this video. I hope and I pray for each and every one of you. I hope that you guys can lean on her testimony and see how the Lord was able to still use her and turn her life around, that no matter how far she thought she had gone, she was never too far gone. All right, guys, I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful weekend, that you're able to regroup, disconnect, get yourselves right for the new week. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.